Hey guys, this is Randy. Welcome to kind of our tutorial on yoga for sleep. This tutorial is to help you, after you've taken the class, to be able to go back as a reference point to understand some of the poses and how to get into the poses. So just a reference point where you don't have to write everything down or remember from our class how to get into all these poses. So with that said, we're going to do about 11 different poses here. I'm going to go through them a little quicker. I'm not going to hold them. I'm going to explain them a little bit more than I would in our classroom environment. And just to reinforce what I talked about in the classroom environment is that you can choose parts of these to do. You don't have to do all of the whole session, the whole 11 poses. So you can choose what works for you and helps you. One or two poses. There's two warm-ups that we start to do, and I'll kind of emphasize the poses that I would think the one or two are the best of the group that you can do. Essentially, we want to release tension in our hips and our shoulders. So those are the two biggest areas that we're trying to release tension in to help us with sleep. And we'll talk more about this on the training, but in all of these poses, when we come to the poses, breath is very important. So not only are we trying to reduce tension in our hips and in our shoulders to help us sleep, to aid in our sleep and to help us to sleep better, but we also want to come to our breath where we can also work toward calming the mind. So calm mind, calm or loosened shoulders and hips are kind of the key to what we're going to be talking about in this series, and all of those play in together. And so I'm not going to emphasize breath as much on this video as I will on the training session, but if you remember how we always stress coming to the 4 to 5 or maybe a 6-second inhale and exhale, the long, steady inhale, breathing in toward the tip of your ribs and breathing out horizontally, a wide breath all the way up through your chest, and your inhale to the tip of your nose. Then a slow exhale starting from the tip of the ribs, allowing the rib cage to close in. Both inhale and exhales are the same length. Don't emphasize one over the other. Make sure that the start and the finish of the breath is the same. So the same amount of air coming in as comes out at the end. Same for inhale and exhale. So there's no emphasis to start at the start of your breath or at the end of the breath. Make it an even, steady flow, both inhale and exhale. And let there be no interruptions to the breath. So one steady flow of breath from start to finish. Those kind of three premises of how to come into your breath are important when you come into these poses, because these are meant to hold. So it's more restorative than it is active. So we're trying to calm the body down and prepare it for sleep. So with that said, what you'll need, and you can use different things besides what I have here. We're only going to use blocks in one pose, but you can use a thick block like this. You can use two of them, and you'll see how we'll use them. Or you can take books that are kind of the same. You can use a couple of books. I think this is maybe 6 inches wide. You can stack books on top of one another. We're going to only use these on one pose, so you don't need a lot of them. You may or may not need a strap, and that can be any kind. This is just a simple cord. It's nothing fancy, but you can use a tie or, and it's flat because sometimes rounded rope is a little tough on your arms. But if you've just got something, a flat cord, it will work. This is a yoga strap. I've already made a loop, so we made a loop, and you want something where you can tie a loop in, and we'll talk about that. So straps, blocks. I've got 2 blankets here, and you know how when you come to our yoga class, we fold the blanket in this long width-wise, it's a 4 folds, so to speak. I've got 2 of these. I'm going to step out of the camera for a moment. I've got to pull it over here. If you have a bolster, you can use one of these. I like these flat bolsters, but for our purposes today, we're going to use 2 blankets. And blankets are probably one of the most important things we'll have. If you don't have blankets, you can use pillows. So whatever you can do to get a little height. And you'll notice I'm going to put these back. I'm using 2 because I'm going to stack them on top of one another. There's about a 6-inch, maybe 3-inch lift off the floor here, of the blanket off the floor, and we'll need a little height. It's something flat and smooth, so when you fold your blankets out, make sure there's no creases in the blankets, nothing that's going to bother your back, or because we'll be on our back with them most time, or under your head. So fold them smooth and get all the creases out of them. All right, so blankets, strap, blocks. Now, I've got a mat here. The only reason I've got a mat is because I'm going to have my chair on the mat. And just make sure that wherever you have your chair, it's on a surface and won't slide. So that's why I have a mat here just for instructional purposes. I have a folded chair, but any chair without arms on the side, and it's just a simple folded chair, one we use in chair yoga. Any simple folded chair without arms on the side, any simple chair, a kitchen table chair that doesn't have arms on the side works just as well. So any chair that works. The only thing is you don't want a real high back chair, one that comes up real high. Just a medium back chair, something that's not real high. All right, so those are the props that you'll need for this. And like I said, we're going to do 11 different poses here. And it doesn't necessarily mean you do the entire sequence. You can do the entire sequence, but you can pick and choose 1, 2, 3, whatever works and is easy on your body, that where you can come to the pose and come to your breath and hold the pose with steadiness and ease. Try to choose one that does hips, one that does shoulders if you do 2. But try to find one of the poses, or 2 or 3 or 4, that work both shoulders and hips, and that you can come to in ease. So if there's a pose here that didn't work for you, don't use it if your body doesn't feel comfortable with it. All right, so that's the idea of what we're talking about, yoga for sleep. Now, I've got notes here. I can keep up with this. I'm going to kind of start going over the poses, and the first 2 poses that we do are simply warm-up poses. Now remember, I'm going to hold, in our class, I'm going to hold each one of these poses for between 5 to 10 breaths, 5 to 10 breaths. Essentially I'm trying to hold it for a minute or 2. You can hold, if you're doing minimum number of poses, let's say if you're doing 2 poses, one for shoulders, one for hips, you can hold them longer. And I would suggest, if you're doing not the entire 11 pose sequence, if you picked 4 or 2 or 1 pose out of this, it works for you. I would suggest that you hold it longer. And of course that pose works for your body, so you're finding a pose that you can hold with ease. And then maybe you hold it for 5, maybe 10 minutes. I do this myself. There's some poses I pull out of this. There's about 3 that I pull out. And you can use them before you go to sleep, or you can use them during the night if you're having a restless night. And that's normally my case. If I have a restless night, I normally fall asleep easy, but I get up and I have a hard time falling back asleep. So I'll get out of the bed and I have 2 poses, essentially child's pose and legs up the wall, for me work, and I hold those for about 5 to 10 minutes each, or when I feel sleepy. And that's normally what occurs. I feel sleepy after the second pose. I feel like the rest is coming back to me, the ease of my breath, my mind has calmed down, or my body, normally it's my body that's active. My body has calmed down and I can sleep. So, all right, let's look at this. Let's go forward now. The first one is essentially just a forward fold on a chair. This is warm-up number 1. I'm going to turn the chair around. I'm going to step, I want to flat back I want long arms and my ankles over my hips just like I'm standing. So essentially, I'm going to bring my arms up and I'm going to simply fold. I'm going to hold the chair where I can press forward. Now I want my knees slightly bent here. I'm going to press the chair forward. I want my head to hang between my arms. So I'm holding the chair with my hands. I'm lifting my tailbone up. I'm pulling back a little bit because I want to find a long spine. And if you have to bend the knees to find a long spine, wherever you're at here, the most important part of this pose is to find a long spine. A long spine. So you want to lengthen. So if you have to bend the knees some to do that, that's fine. Legs don't have to be straight all the way. I'm pushing back and I'm letting my head hang. I'm letting my head hang. And like I said, I would hold this for a few breaths, about 2 minutes, or maybe not 2 minutes, maybe 5 to 10 breaths, or if you're timing yourself, 1 to 2 minutes would work fine here. And this is a warm-up. All right. To come out of this, I step my feet in and I walk toward the chair. Now, the other warm-up pose, I'm going to take a blanket and I'm going to lay it across my chair, the back of the chair. It's almost like the pose we just did, but my elbows are going to be bent on the chair. Now, this is where a strap may come in handy. And I've got my strap already, a loop in the strap. And you can tie, if you have a tie or a piece of cordage like I had there, you can tie a loop in it. And this one's about wide as my shoulders. And it's a little loose here. A good measurement for this normally is if you take the loop that you tie and you can put it on your elbow. Notice I've got a finger up in the air and you can put it in the finger and it's as long as from your elbow to that index finger pointed, that's normally about as wide as your shoulders. And that's what we want, about as wide as our shoulders. So what I'm going to do here is now you only need the strap if your elbows come out wide. So I'll explain here. We're going to take our elbows on the chair and then we'll let our head hang between the elbows. Notice I've got my hands in prayer. I'm letting my head hang between my elbows. The same thing, knees bent for a straight back. I'm pressing my elbows forward and I'm letting my head hang here. And I'm letting my head hang here. Now, if you have your shoulders tend to open and you have a hard time holding the shoulders on the chair or the elbows on the chair without the elbows coming apart, here's where the strap comes. Now, the strap is about at the bend of your elbow. All right, notice how I've got it. About at the bend of my elbow. My hands are in prayer. All right. Now this one, I need to tighten this up a little bit. All right. So it's a little bit closer than my shoulders, or a little bit shorter, not as wide as my shoulders, because my chair back is not that wide. I'm going to put my hands on, and then I'm going to kind of press into the strap, and I'm going to pull back. I'm pressing in the strap. My elbows actually stay on the chair easier here. Notice my prayer fingers are pointing up. I'm going to bend the knees to make sure my back is straight. If my back is straight, I'm going to straighten the legs, and I'm going to press the elbows forward, and I'm going to try to let my head hang between the arms. Let the head hang between the arms. And I'm just holding here and breathing. Holding here and breathing. To come out, I'm going to look forward, come up, and take the strap off. So that is warm-up 1 and 2. Warm-up 1 and 2. Straight arms, elbows on chair. All right, remember to use the strap. Now, we're getting into the poses now. The next pose is essentially down. I'm going to remove the blanket. I'm going to still use the chair. I'm just going to turn the chair around. And the next pose we're going to do here now is downward facing dog with a chair. So I'm going to come down, I'm going to fold. I'm going to stand from my chair about 2 foot. I'm going to bring my hands down the chair where my shoulders are over, and I'm going to pull back my legs or walk back my legs. So I want straight arms. So imagine I'm pulling the tailbone back. The same thing we just did on the chair just a moment ago, but we're on the back of the chair. We've taken it down a notch. My feet come wide as my mat. All right? I'm going to pull back, and I'm going to let my head hang. I'm going to let my head hang. And then just hold here. Now, you just don't let go. Don't let your belly go. Keep pressing into the mound of your big toe. Keep lifting your tailbone back and keep pulling back. So you want to act as if you're pressing the chair forward and pulling your tailbone back. At the same time, let your head hang. To come out of this, I step my feet in, look at the chair, and step in toward the chair. All right, so that was essentially our first pose, which was downward facing dog on the chair. Our second pose is standing one leg forward bends. Standing one leg forward bends. This is where the blocks can come into play. The blocks come into play are a book. Okay, now I'm going to turn my chair to the side. All right. Now let's make sure we understand where the leg is going to come. So the leg, if I'm standing facing my chair, I want to place my leg on the front of the chair, not the back of the chair, the front of the chair. So, and we'll do both sides. I'm going to do my right leg, and I'm going to have both legs on the chair. Now, I've got it all the way to the edge of the chair, and now, and my knees over my ankle, knees over my ankle, knees over my ankle. Right now, from here, I'm going to simply place my hands inside the leg, and I'm going to turn the chair where you can see it again. I'm placing my hands inside the chair, right? And then I'm going to let my head hang, all right? So I'm going to let my head hang. Now, the blocks, if your hands will not come to the chair, and sometimes you can use one or two, are the books. If my hands don't come to the chair easily, I'm going to place my hand on blocks, Now that knee's not coming out to the side that's in the chair. It stays right in line with my toes, and I'm just going to let my head hang. Now as you let your head hang, the hip here in the bent leg, you want to let it go. You want to feel a little bit of pressure in that hip coming down, and you're going to hang here. Hang. Head hangs. You can round your back a bit, and you're going to come down. You're going to come down. Right? And then to come out, you'll lift come up to a flat back and step the foot off the chair. Let's do that on the other side just for make sure we're all on the same page. Right? Remember now, I'm going to take the blocks out because I don't need the blocks. Remember, the blocks come if your hands will not touch the chair. I'm going to come around. I've got to do the other side here, the other side. And so let's see how I can do that. I've got to turn my back to you almost. All right? All right? I can't figure out how to do the other side here. How about coming around the other side of the chair? That's funny. All right. So I'm going to take my left leg. Now remember, the leg on the chair comes to the front of the chair. The reason you don't put it on the back of the chair is so the chair can flip over with you. All right, I'm going to put the leg on the chair, my left leg now on the chair. Now notice my knees over my ankle. I've got a long right leg. I'm going to bring my arms down to the chair. All right, and then press that left leg, the bent leg in the chair, gently in where you can feel weight in that left hip, and I'm going to let my head hang. And you would hold here and breathe. You would hold here and breathe. Slow, long inhales and exhales. Right? Make sure that bottom toes are turned forward. The foot's not out to the side. The toes are poured forward in line with your knee. The same way with the bent leg. And you're just going to hang here. You want to feel weight in that left hip, the bent leg side. You come up, you just lift up, hold the chair, bring your hands down. All right, so that is essentially standing forward fold in a chair. All right, now let's look at the next pose. All right, I'm going to bring a chair forward, and I'm going to sit on the chair this time. So I'm going to sit on the chair, and as normal, I'm going to sit forward of the chair. So I'm not using the back. I'm setting up to the front of the chair, right where the creases of my hips and my leg comes. I'm not using the back of the chair. And then I'm going to take the legs a little wide. I'll take the legs a little wide. And now, the legs are a little wide. I'm going to bring my hands to my hip points. And I'm simply going to fold down. And I'm going to let the back round. And I'll bring the hands forward. And I'm going to hold my legs and let my head hang. Rounded back. Arms are forward to my legs. And my head is hanging. And my head is hanging. And breathing in and out of the nose. Very simple. So that is seated forward fold. All right. And seated forward fold with the chair. Seated forward fold with chair. Legs are wide. You could say it's a wide-legged seated forward fold. Hands to the ankles. Head hangs. Back is rounding. Chin is dropping. You're letting go of your upper torso. Look to the chair, to the wall behind you. All right. Now, I'm going to come up. Let's keep going on. The next one, Are legs up wall or legs up chair? I'm going to give you 3 variations to this pose because the back of the legs may be tight, and so depending upon the tightness of your legs, it's which one of these you would use. All right, so let's start up first, and this is, I'm starting easy to more, I don't want to say strenuous, but easier on the back of the legs to harder on the back of the legs. I guess that's the best way to say it. So it's based upon your hamstring and the length, and you don't want to suffer in this pose. So what you have to choose the one where you feel the less strain, All right, the first one. All right, I'm going to turn the chair around with the seat of the chair that's facing me. Here lies where we're going to use the blankets. All right. Now, I've got the blankets down, all right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my chest on the blanket where my back of my head is on the blanket. The back of my head is on the blanket in my back, all right? So that blanket really is catching me about right here. So, but my head is on the blanket and my arms are out to the side, palms turned up. Now, I'm going to take the chair and slide a little bit forward. Now, if the chair's cold and you want a blanket in the chair, you can do that. That helps a bit. All right, that helps a bit. And I've got the legs in the chair. Keep your knees about hip width apart and hands out to the side. All right, and now, again, you're going to lengthen the back of the neck. So you don't want the neck off the, make sure the back of the head is on the blanket, not off back behind the blanket. It's on the blanket and your hands are out to the side. All right, and you just hold here and breathe. All right, this is one. Now, if your chin is lifted here and your head is on the blanket, you can take another blanket or a pillow and put it on your head. The most important thing is I don't want your chin lifted up and back. So, however your chin, you have to lengthen the back of your neck. Make sure your chin is a little bit pointed toward your upper sternum, not lifted up and back. That's only going to create agitation in this pose and may create a situation where it doesn't help you sleep. All right, so back of head on blanket. All right, number 2 in this pose. Now remember, we're going to more tightness in the back of your leg. So let's say that one was very easy to you. You have to explore. Again, if you got another blanket, you can put it on the top. I'm taking the blanket a little bit away from me, or the chair a little bit away from me. I'm going to slide it a little bit away from me. The back of the legs, notice my legs are vertical a bit, all right, vertical a bit. And my legs are on top of the chair now. So they're not straight up in the air, they're a little vertical, and then you can adjust that. That can be a little bit more forward where the legs can be. So you have to kind of find that space where the legs are more or less vertical, all right? And so the whole idea here is they're not straight up. You've got not a 90-degree angle. You've taken the legs a little forward to lessen the stretch in the back of your legs. Lessen the stretch in the back of your leg. Hands out to the side. And you're going to breathe. Okay. Now, another step here, if you have a hard time keeping your legs together, you can always take a strap, that strap you used just a moment ago. You can tie it around your legs where they won't fall open. All right. Now, again, remember this degree of how those legs are forward to alleviate the stretch in the back of the hamstrings. All right, so that can be adjusted for your legs. All right, now, the last one here is going to be the most strenuous. And we're going to slide our blankets back over with us. I'm only going to put the blanket under my head here. So I'm going to use a wall, not the chair here. And this one works for me at home. I use a wall, and you've got to have kind of a clear wall. So this wall here to the side, it's not the best wall in the world because you're kind of hard time seeing me. The blankets this time are going to be on the back of my head only. So my buttocks is up against the wall. My legs are straight up the wall, and the blanket's back behind my head. My arms are out to the side of my body turned up. Now, I need to come a little bit away from the side wall where I can take my arm out and I'm reaching down. Now you can do the same thing you just did on the chair just a moment ago. Your leg can be straight up the wall, or you can pull your buttocks away from the wall to alleviate the stretch in your hamstrings. So as we had the legs on the chair just a moment ago, with the chair a little forward and the legs a little vertical, you can do the same thing on the wall here. The maximum amount of stretch in your hamstrings is when the buttocks is all the way up against the wall and the legs are straight up against the wall, and that straight angle from hip straight up. And you're going to reach through the heels, and you're just going to hang out. Turn your palms up toward the ceiling. You're going to hang out here and breathe. Hang out here and breathe. Now we'll drop the legs down and come over to the side. I find this to be one of my most useful help me get to sleep in the middle of night poses, is my legs up against the wall. I've got I keep a yoga mat in my bedroom. I keep a couple of blankets in the bedroom with the yoga mat, and when I have a hard time sleeping, I really essentially use this pose as my primary pose to help me get back to sleep. I find that 10 minutes in this pose, legs on chair or legs up the wall, is a great restorative pose to bring calm and ease to my body. Not only if I'm trying to sleep, but if I've had a tough day, I've done a lot of exercise, and I know my body's kind of ragged. Legs up the wall or legs on the chair for a minimum of 10 minutes with that slow, even breath works wonders. I encourage you to try that. Okay, let's keep moving on. So we did legs up wall or chair. Now we're going to do inverted bound angle here. All right. I'm going to turn this around. All right. I'm going to take my blankets. All right. Now I'm going to do something different on this one. I'm going to move my blankets a little forward, and I'm going to have my head back a little bit. I'm going to have to lift my head a little bit, and I've got the blanket in the middle section of my body, My head is on the floor, and I'm going to lengthen the crown of my head. Now, if this doesn't work for you, make sure that the chin is lifted. So if you have to put something on your head, do so. So don't make sure your chin is not lifted up toward the ceiling. So now I'm going to bring the chair a little bit away from my body. It's about 6 or so inches away from my body, where I can bend my knees. Now notice my feet are on the floor and my knees come out to the side. Let's see if you can see that better. I would be on blankets here. Let's see if you can see this a little better. You can also take a blanket in the chair for your feet if the chair is too hard. Let's see if you can see. I'm going to take the blanket out, remember, where you can see. And I've got the legs, sole of the feet together, knees together, and then the knees open up, and the feet are on the floor or on the chair. Notice how this is cobbler's pose. You've got the blankets under the back like we just had just a moment ago. My knees come together, my knees come wide, my hands out to the side, and I release my knees out. And you're going to hold here and breathe. I would suggest that if you have something, and the chair is very hard, that you put something in the chair where your feet can come on the chair. You can't see that here. That's why I took the blanket off. But feet together, feet open up, sole of feet together, and then release the knees down. You're gently pressing the sole of the feet together, and here you're going to hold and breathe. All right? So that is essentially inverted bound angle, or cobbler's pose, inverted on a chair. All right, now let's keep moving on. The next pose is downward facing cross-legged position. So, all right, I'm going to use the chair again here. I'm going to take one of my blankets, I'm going to fold it again. All right? I'm going to set on my blanket, all right, and I'm going to cross one leg in front of the other. You can set up higher. If this cross-legged position is not comfortable for you, you can set up higher on blankets to try to make it more comfortable. And like I said, some of these poses may not work for your body. If it's not comfortable for your body, you're not going to find rest. So whatever pose works that you can find ease in your body, use that. All right, so I've got my right leg in front of my left. The chair's a little forward. I'm going to bring my arms forward. Now I'm crossing my elbows. And I'll bring my head down on the chair. And I'm just going to hold here. Just going to hold. 5. And breathe. 4, 3, 2, 1. And we'll release and come out. So you can hold that for that, 5 to 10 breaths. You can hold it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Again, whatever works for you. All right, we'll move that. That was forward rested or forward fold, head rested on chair with crossed legs. All right, let's keep moving on. The next one is a supported twist. All right, now I'm going to take my 2 blankets. All right. All right, my 2 blankets. All right, got my 2 blankets, and I've got them on top of one another. All right. I'm going to take my legs out to the side and put my knees on it. So I'm over on, if I had my hands on the blanket here on the left side, I've got my knees over each other on the left side and my hands over the blanket, and I'm going to come down. All right. I'm going to take my hands out to the side like cactus arms, Now there's 2 ways to approach this, and it depends upon how your body. Now you notice I'm looking in the direction of where my knees are at. All right? Knees stacked on top of one another. You don't have to have them right on top of one another. Sometimes that's uncomfortable. You can take them down, but both knees are over on one side. Now, you can either look to the side of your knees, or you can turn your head to the opposite side. Again, you can either look to the side of your knees, or simply turn your head to the opposite side. Make sure your spine's long. Breathe in and out of your nose. I'm going to demonstrate that on the other side real quick. You'll do both sides, and you'll hold it the equal amount of time. So I've got my, this time, I've got right arm on each side. I've got my legs over to the right. Essentially, that's my left hip is on the ground. My knees are together, and I'm going to come down across. All right. Now, I'm looking to the side of my knees, or looking to the opposite side of my knees. Arms in cactus, and you'll breathe. To come out of this, press up, bring the legs forward. All right, so that was supported reclined twist. Supported reclined twist. All right. Now, the next one is supported child's pose. So, I'm going to take my blankets. I've got both of them stacked on top of one another. I'm going to take it one more fold. 1. I'm going to take the second one a fold. 2. You can take that even higher if you like. So, if you know that child's pose is kind of not your favorite, where you get kind of stuck here as opposed to here, child's pose is not your favorite. The higher you get with your stack of blankets, the better off you are. Even a bolster sometimes works. You can take 1 or 2 of these. So I put to the bolster forward. I'm going to take the blankets 2 forward where you can see a high stack to begin with. I'm going to have them between my legs, and I'm going to bring my head down on the blanket and turn it to one side. So from tabletop, and the blankets and the bolster is almost between your legs. Your legs are about as wide as your hip. And I'm going to pull back, and I'm going to let my elbows come down. Now, that's the high. If you know that you have a problem with child's pose, you want the full chest flat on the floor where you're taking some of that relief out of the back of the legs, full chest. And then if you're going to hold it for several breaths, you may want to turn your head during the middle of it. Let's say if you know you've been there for a little while, you're counting breaths, or you're just breathing and you felt like you've been there for a while. You don't have to be real specific here. You just turn your head to the other side for a while. So about halfway through, turn your head to the other side. Now, I'm going to take this high stack out where you can see. And again, that bolster between my legs, and I'm going to come down on it. You can bring your elbows back where we're not trying to extend the arms and press forward. The elbows and the forearms can be on the floor, and you're just going to let the chest. You can even slide it back in a little bit more between the legs where you've got more chest on the bolster, and you're just going to hang out here. Hang out here. This is my second favorite pose, legs up the wall and supported child's pose. Both of these help me dramatically. It really takes a lot of tension out of my hips, and that's where I have a lot of my tension when I try to sleep. And this one right here is just excellent if I've been running a lot, not sleeping at night, and I'll just come to this. Sometimes I will fall asleep here and wake up and say, oh goodness, I need to get into bed. All right, let's come up. Kind of got that idea higher based upon the more, to reduce the stretch in the back of the legs if child's pose is not your absolute favorite. All right, the last one and the most simple one. We do this a lot. We use one blanket under the head. One blanket under the head, and that blanket under the head is not under the shoulders, and this is Shavasana. Legs are wide, the back of your neck is long, arms out to the side, feet wide. Feet wide. And then you'll just hold this. And I would recommend if you do 2, 3, or the whole thing, you don't miss this Shavasana. Just don't get into bed. Come down if you're doing this on the floor, of course, by your bed. Come back to Shavasana for a couple of breaths. And come back to your breath. Come back to the breath and try to let go of the body then. I don't want you to fall asleep on the floor, but if you do, that works. But hold this for, those 5 to 10 breaths. And then gently, this is the key to it, don't just pop up, come over to your side. Use your hands to support your torso and come up. Come up slow, undo all the work we just did, and then find yourself in the bed. All right. So those are the 11 different poses that we'll do. There'll be a full class on this. This is just for your reference if you need to remember how to do these from the class. And of course, any questions, you can always contact me.